What's up everybody? So today has been pretty awesome. We had the key to the all-new 2017 Lotus Evora 400. Huge thank you to the guys at Maserati Lotus of Greenville. They provided us with a vehicle to check it out for the day. So today's video, this video right now, we're gonna check out 5 really cool upgrades from the standard first generation Lotus Evora to the all-new Evora 400. Starting off with number 1 is the exterior styling. They changed the exterior a lot in this vehicle. The original Evora is very beautiful looking, has great sleek lines all around, very clean looking, nothing sharp or super aggressive about it. It's just a clean looking, great looking sports car. Definitely nothing wrong with the exterior at all. Very sleek, nice rounded lines in it. And then as we move on to the new 400, they've added a lot of edginess to it. There's a lot more flair to it. The front end has a whole new bumper, a large chin spoiler, different mesh in the grills. Identical for the whole clamshell pretty much, just different mesh up top. But the overall front end is much more aggressive, sharp angles compared to the more rounded original one. Side profile is pretty much identical from one car to the other. This one has the black pack, gets you the black side skirt, which add a really cool flair to it. Some blacked out accents as well. And then in our car we have the black vinyl wrap side skirt. But overall, the side profiles are pretty much identical. The only main difference, the mirrors are different shapes, and then the mesh is visible right there. Got more egg-shaped mirrors. And then the Evora, it's got the LEDs in them, and they are power folding, which is a great touch. This is now all smooth, and the mesh is now inside. Moving on to the rear end, they've done a lot of changes back here as well. All new diffuser with a new 3-piece spoiler. Adds quite a lot of downforce compared to the original. Very cool looking with the different colors and the shapes. And the big diffuser. Large center exhaust, which kind of resembles the S model. And then going back to the original Evora, more sleek spoiler, just all one piece there. And then a little bit smaller diffuser. Little fins underneath. But overall, the exterior styling is very aggressive and bold looking. I still love the original Evora, you can't go wrong with it, it looks great, but the new Evora 400 really stands out, especially bright orange. It's right in your face the way it's set up. So the overall exterior is insanely sharp looking, which leads us to point number 2, which is the great fit and finish for the interior. So we'll check out the original Evora to start off. Very good looking, I will say. You got some nice leathers along the doors, nice leather Recaro bucket seats, more leather along the dash. But with the Evora, some things aren't quite the best. A little plasticky feeling on the door panel. And then the airbag covers, I don't think I've ever seen one that lays completely flat. And then just some things in the interior are a little plasticky, little Velcro together. Not saying it's bad, but the original Evora, the overall fit and finish isn't really the greatest compared to other cars. And then as we move on to the 400, and of course this is a brand new car versus a 6-year-old car, but everything about it, there's no gaps in the door sill. Everything lays nice and flat, no gaps or anything. Very nicely made. Everything is kind of just a little more solid. Nothing really moves or squeaks. The door handle is much more solid. So the interior fit and finish leads us to point number 3, which is the user friendliness of the vehicle. First off, these door sills are about 2 inches lower, which makes it a lot easier to get in and out of the vehicle. The other one is a little challenging, but then once you're inside, all the buttons are a little nicer. You have knobs that are easy to use and easy to see. And then your defrosters and other buttons. The automatic is very simple to use, similar to the previous generation, but then you also have nice looking buttons up top. Easy to see and easy to use. We'll show you the previous ones in just a second. You get push button ignition. But overall, the interior is just a little bit easier to use. The buttons look a little bit better. So now check out the first generation Evora. It is cool how they did all the buttons. They look very sleek, but the user friendliness is just, it's a little difficult. So starting with the really big door sill, you know, nothing wrong with it, but it is a little bit harder getting into. You have to pull your leg up just a little more of a challenge. But then you have these buttons, which are very hard to see. I don't know if the camera really picks them up, but you got your lock and your glove box button, and then traction control in sport mode. So a little hard to see. And then for your air conditioning controls and everything, these are kind of hard to see if they're lit or not. So you kind of have to put your hand over to really see it. But definitely not the most user-friendly interior. Some things are just a little harder to get to. And then the dash is a little bit different to look at compared to the Evora 400. And then in the Evora, it's a little bit easier to see with the bold numbering, white on black, and then all the digital is a white on a black rather than a red on a light red. So definitely a little bit easier to see everything on the 400. And moving on to point number 4, that is the power with the 400. Only getting that up to about 4,000 RPM. The 400 horsepower and the torque that this car has is very impressive. Super linear the way it feels, of course, uninterrupted power with an automatic transmission. So now in the standard Evora with the manual, the shifts are of course a little slower, but for the power, it still is quite peppy. Of course, I'm flooring it more, being it's our car and not brand new. But with the Evora 400, you can just feel the low-end torque, while this car needs to get to about 4,000 RPM until the power really takes off. So of course with the supercharger, you have the low-end torque, so under 4,000 RPM, it really feels powerful. While this car, you of course have to wring it out a little bit. So about 1,500. Once it gets to that 3 to 4, it really moves. And then point 5 is the new sound. There you go, everybody. Those are 5 upgrades with the Evora 400, comparing it to the standard Evora. The overall exterior styling is insanely sharp. It's much more modern and bold looking, great looking wheels. This does have 20s in the rear. I think the previous generation S model did as well. This car, still super sleek, definitely not an outdated looking car at all. I mean, it looks amazing, very sharp looking, just more roundedness of the vehicle versus the little more bold and aggressive shapes. The interiors are drastically different. That's probably the biggest comparison, the biggest difference. You have such a premium look, all great leather covering everything, the white stitching, easy to use buttons, nothing weird about it, just pretty comfortable, easy to use, looks super sporty. And then back to the standard Evora. Still a great looking interior, just it's not the most user-friendly out there. Some of the buttons are just a little awkward. And then the overall fit and finish isn't the best. It's still pretty good, but it's just not the best fit and finish. Still looks great, and I mean, it's still a pretty quality built vehicle. Just a few things aren't quite as solid as the new car. The 400 supercharged horsepower with the Evora 400 is drastically improved compared to about 278 naturally aspirated horsepower from the standard Evora. Still an insanely quick car. Once it gets to about 4,000, it moves. This car, on the other hand, the low-end torque is noticeably different. And then lastly, the sound. This car has an active exhaust system with sport mode. There's so much changes in it. The exhaust gets louder, the downshifts get rev matching, everything about it sharpens up. Sport mode on this car is still fantastic. It makes the engine throttle response a little bit better. The overall sound, though, isn't nearly as loud. But overall, the original Evora, Lotus did such a great job turning an Elise into basically a normal car, going with what they've learned with the Elise as a fun toy to a car that is actually a practical daily driver. And then now as Lotus comes back to the States full bore, their new car is definitely a great upgrade. So those are 5 upgrades with the new Evora that I definitely like over the original. Not saying that's a bad or a slow car at all. It's fantastic and tons of fun. It is less than half the price though, so you have to kind of justify 40 grand versus 100 something thousand. So price is obviously a huge difference, but the new Evora 400 is such an amazing car. It reminds me a little bit about the Ferraris that I've driven, which are obviously even more expensive. But overall, great cars. The Evora 400 is fantastic. Huge thank you to Maserati Lotus of Greenville for providing the vehicle for today's videos. We have more videos coming. Definitely subscribe to us on YouTube to stay tuned. Like our Facebook page, and don't forget to follow us on Instagram for tons of photos of both these cars together. So thank you all for watching. We'll see you all next video.